Hello, welcome back. Yeah, it's been a while. Holidays are what they are. So, starting new painting, and over the years, I've done a couple of paintings. And if you go to my website, you can see some of them. Um, Most recently, no virus and an iris. I've done paintings where, as I work on the painting, it has a sense of familiarity, and I begin to realize that the painting has an element of a famous painting in it. So, in case of no virus and an iris, it was a painting of me working in the garden, and I realized the position was very, very close to Andrew Wyeth Christie's world. And so then I sort of play with that. I've done the same. I was painting a woman coming out of a hot tub and realized it was very close to Botticelli's um, Venus, oftentimes called Venus on the half shell, where Venus is rising up out of the sea on a scallop shell. And there's another one of Monet's Dead Matador that had crept into another image about actors being in the moment. So I thought, I don't know if you can quite see it, up here is a copy of Renoir's Boating Party. And so what I thought I might try is to start, to do paintings using elements of other famous impressionists, and I may expand that out to um, American realists, various other paintings, various artists that I enjoy. It'd be interesting, particularly for me, because my sense of space doing a Hopper painting, which his paintings are all about isolation, and my paintings are all about congestion, for lack of a better word. So I've took a while. I haven't made videos obviously for a bit. So my iPad was completely dead, which is what I'm using to film this. So you didn't get to see the initial layout, but I've started to block the thing in. Now my original idea was to use elements of where I work, but I now realize that um, this is such a crowded scene that I don't need to set it anywhere. It's more about, for me, the interactions with the people. What's going to be interesting as I go forward, and for you perhaps to watch, is how does this, how do I refer back, how many people, but it doesn't matter how many people realize what I'm doing. Ultimately, in every single case, whenever you paint, whether you're painting from life or painting, what's on the page, the final painting, is what matters. So even what I'm telling you, if it's not a good painting, it's not a good painting regardless. And if it's a good painting and it doesn't really look like the boating party, that's okay too. So I am now going to just continue to work on this piece. I'll probably shoot this video over a couple of days to build in this. So I'm going to switch to time lapse. I don't have a lot of time today before I have to go to work. And I just realized I didn't put my gloves on. So I'm going to switch to time lapse, let you watch this thing start to build, and I'll check back with you later. So, and of course, please give it a subscription. Please give me a thumbs up. Love to hear your comments. Love what you think about this idea. Um, does this make any sense? Do you know the painting I'm talking about? Um, my artwork is at the art of, nope. My artwork is at greigleach.com, and those paintings I referenced, I think, are all on the website, so you can check those out. Well, probably not actors being the moment. But anyway, thanks for taking the time. I'm going to switch over to time lapse now and check back with you later. All right. Excuse me. So clearly I've moved on in the painting, trying to figure out where I go next. In my work, I'm always really close, and I, I tend not to have a deep background. You're right up against the edge of the painting, right up against the surface of the painting. So while I know you can see just a little bit of this, in Renoir's boating party, there's a whole lot of foreground before we get into the figures. And even in the background, this is a boating party, so we're going to assume this is reflection on the water and the canopy over the little dining area out on the water. And you see a lot more of the table. Um, and his perspective is more um, straight on, so looking at the tabletop at this angle, whereas I've turned my tabletop much more vertical, so you're sort of looking down on the table. One of the things I've noticed over time as I create work is my perspective, kind of like my viewing of the painting when I stand close. So when I stand close, I'm looking straight at the top of the painting. And when I look down, I'm looking down on the bottom of the painting. And that orientation sneaks into my work. So I am not trying to copy Renoir's painting. Renoir did it and did it beautifully. This painting hangs at the Phillips Collection in DC, and I grew up there, and I've seen this painting many, many, many times. That's not my intention. Although, if you want to really learn how a painter paints, copy their artwork. And certainly in the past, Wayne Thiebaud, I'm a big fan of his work. And I started a lot of my work sort of riffing off what he was doing. And then a whole bunch of the Bay Area artists, also at the Phillips, a couple of Richard Diebenkorn's earlier works when he hadn't completely gotten rid of a lot of them are landscapes, and there's some figurative stuff too. One of the ones that's at the Phillips is a woman sitting in a chair, but it's such a beautiful precursor to his whole Ocean Park abstract series. But if you sort of follow the development of his imagery, you can see where the landscape paintings landscape paintings, you can see where they came from through the figurative paintings with a play of light and shadow on the foreground, and I have certainly used that in previous paintings myself. And then he also, so if you look at those paintings, you see that. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. And so I've used that play of light and shadow in many previous paintings too. And then that play of light and shadow sort of starts to inform the abstract paintings, and those landscape paintings that inform the abstract paintings. And to be honest, I don't know if he's still alive. But that has been his, the majority of his work, what he's most known for, the abstract paintings. Although I confess I am much more drawn to his figurative work. But then I'm drawn to the figure, clearly. I am not a landscape painter. Like even when I do my cycling work, you'll see that I concentrate so much more on the cyclists and the story, and very, very few paintings feature the landscape of where the racers are racing. I am thinking about playing around with the race, obviously, well, not obviously, but all of the people in the boating party are white. I don't think all of these people will end up being white. We shall see, shan't we? So this is sort of where I'm going to continue to work through this piece, see where I end up. It's a curious thing about filming these things, you know, what happens if I go, God, this painting sucks. And they do occasionally. I have paintings that suck. Hopefully, I will have destroyed them. Well, when I say destroyed, I tend to, I save them and then I paint over. And if you dig back through the videos in this, on my page here, you should find a piece about, the painting is called I Can't Breathe. And I Can't Breathe was done over a not very successful painting. And since the painting is about, as you probably recognize the phrasing, I can't breathe, it's about the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police. And it sparked, obviously, riots, protests, all sorts of mayhem. Deservedly so, I might add. And brought about, in many parts of the country, the removal of Confederate statues. So that painting that I'm talking about, the one I Can't Breathe, was done over a unsuccessful painting that also happened to feature, or did feature, the monument. So it was this sort of double thing of painting over the painting and painting over the history that, while the original painting didn't really celebrate it, it didn't denigrate it either. It's sort of, and I will confess that my early thinking, I didn't really give much thought to the painting, to the statue. God knows where I was going with that thought. Sorry, guys. This is always my difficulty because, as one would expect, or one should expect, the process of painting requires a lot of thought. And so I'm trying to make these painting decisions while talking to you, and I frequently get lost in my train of thought. Well, let's be honest, I get lost in my train of thought a lot of times. So I was thinking, I once had a double-breasted jacket that was this large striped jacket, and it reminds me of the era that Renoir was painting in, and so it's sort of a nod back in this painting to the time period of this painting. Does that make sense? So this is clearly modern dress, clearly modern time image. Well, I don't know how clear, but modern time imagery. And so, but I also want to sort of pay homage back to the time period. So things like many of the men in this image several of the men are wearing straw hats. Nobody wears straw hats anymore, but I kept the color of this baseball cap, which of course is a very common hat now, and also the this is in essence a pork pie hat, which bears a structural similarity to the straw hats of the 1880s. So sort of some of these images now, the guy whose back you can see right here, of course we won't see his neck and head, he's wearing a top hat, with the exception of gubernatorial and presidential, I don't think they do it in presidential anymore, inaugurations or swearing in ceremonies. Nobody wears a top hat anymore, except for on stage in dance routines. It's about the only time I ever see one now. So I'm going to continue working on this. I'm going to stop the blathering part of the video and go back to the time-lapse part of the video. And clearly I have had progressed the image after I turned off the previous time-lapse. This is another day. Thus, slightly different clothes, slightly messier hair. I was thinking, well, should I make sure my hair looks good before these? And I did. My usual decision is, what does it matter? So, sorry for not dressing up for y'all. So this is sort of a roughing in of that striped top, and I think that's going to help. One of the things that many of the women have on are flowery headdresses and such, and again, not something you might have figured out. I don't know what I'm doing with this painting. And that's not a bad thing at all. In fact, it's a great thing. Painting is about discovery. Painting is about learning as you go and figuring things out. And nothing more exciting than looking at a painting in a museum setting and seeing the artist's thought process as they work through the work and seeing the transitions that those thought processes and how they change during the process of making the painting. And that becomes a very fascinating part of looking at work. For me anyway, and hopefully for you, or you wouldn't be watching this. So, for me, the paintings I struggle for, and so far, this painting has been a monumental struggle. Now, it's early days, but still, that trying to figure out just exactly what I'm doing, where the figure should be. Like, I've moved this arm a couple of times already. I've moved things around. Still trying to decide what's happening here. That's the interesting part for me. And the paintings I fight for are the paintings I personally like the most. So I'm going to switch back now to time lapse and then probably clock out of this first series of videos about this painting. So again, I'll remind you, please give a subscription, thumbs up. I'd love to hear your comments. What do you think about this whole idea of going back and looking at well-known paintings with a fresh eye and a fresh painting technique? Do you think I'm on a fool's errand? I'd like to know what you think, quite honestly. And of course, your subscriptions, your thumbs up, your comments help drive the algorithm that helps other people find this artwork as well. So if you like what you see, you would be helping me and others find this work. And if you don't like it, I'd be real curious. I would prefer you be polite about it, but I'd be curious what you think and why you don't like it and what do you think is wrong. And would you take the same thing on? And, I'd love to see your work. If what you think I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing is wrong, show me what you're doing. And conversely, of course, if you think what I'm doing is right, show me what you're doing. I'd love to know. So I'm going to switch to time lapse now and check out at the end of that. So thanks for taking the time to watch.